Hello, welcome to St. James Cathedral for this rush hour concert put on by Classical Music Chicago. I'm Robbie Ellis, and I have three of the performers with me for this pre-concert talk. Glad to be here, and glad that you're here as well. So we have Rob Kassinger. Did I get your name pronounced Kassinger? Kassinger? Kassinger. Without the R in my case at the end, I guess. Diane Mues is a viola player, bass player, both members of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. And finally, Susan Warner, acting principal clarinet of the Lyric Opera Orchestra. We have a couple of odd quintets in here today. So, before we get into the music, should we talk a little bit about your summer plans? You've got some fun travel coming up.
Absolutely. My family and I will be headed out to Switzerland in a couple of weeks. Our oldest child, Henry Griffin, will be participating in the Verbier Festival. So can't wait to go hear that. And then later in the summer, playing with the Sun Valley Music Festival in Idaho.
So you're like a lot of those musicians in, say, the Grant Park Orchestra. They've got jobs out of Chicago during the year, and then they go elsewhere. Then they come here. And you've got a job in Chicago, and you go elsewhere.
The best way to do it.
Yeah. All right. Diane and Rob, you got some fun summer plans?
Well, yes, I'll be playing with the Chicago Symphony at Ravinia this summer, as will Rob, the rest of my CSO colleagues. For me, I just love the summer and playing outdoors. It's outdoors, and so what could be bad about that? It's a beautiful venue, and Ravinia is a great place. And Chicago is in the summer as well. Something I love in the summer is swimming in the lake, and
I haven't done that this summer. Is it warm enough yet?
You know, I usually don't go in the water until about after July 11th, but this year I took advantage of some north winds and calculated just right, and yes, the warm water was blowing in towards the shore, and I was swimming about a week and a half ago, and it's beautiful.
That is also a personal taste question, though.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
All right, so the two quintets on the program, the first is by Kat Soupenetsky, born Katerina Kramarchuk. Soupenetsky is her married name. Born in Moldova, trained at Curtis and at Juilliard. It's called Wandering Through Night, and the start of the piece is very, very gentle. It's like these lovely, lovely textures to it. What would you say? What would you talk about the piece? What would you say about the piece, having rehearsed it?
Well, it does sound like walking through the night. And anybody have anything to add to that? And the sort of the things you might hear at night?
Yeah, absolutely. It starts off kind of smooth and cool while you're walking around and just looking around, and I am imagining that in the middle you're walking past something kind of jazzy or fun, and it has a real syncopated jazzy feel in the middle.
And a pretty decent bass solo in the middle as well, Rob. It's not too usual that at a chamber piece or any piece really makes a big feature of the double bass.
That's one of the great things about the Prokofiev quintet is that, bass players, we generally have just a handful of chamber music pieces that we're included in. So the Soupenetsky piece was written for a group that was probably playing this piece, and then she wrote with the same instrumentation this other piece. And yeah, it is kind of jazzy, and there's a predominant jazz harmony that you hear at the very beginning that it's sort of utilized throughout the piece, sort of a Miles Davis, Gil Evans kind of harmony, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah, shades of kind of blue.
Yeah, exactly.
And there are moments in there that kind of remind me of Janacek's music, these sort of plaintive chords and these slow lines on top. And were there some difficult corners in this piece to get the textures on? Anything to listen out for?
Yes, very difficult.
Yeah.
Lots of corners.
All right.
Many corners.
So
But it's manageable, you know, when everybody's listening, and it's hard with a brand new piece that nobody knows to really find your way through it and make not just be able to sort of play through the piece, but to make some musical sense of it. Yeah. It's been a nice challenge.
So that's the first piece on the program by Soupenetsky. And moving on to Sergey Prokofiev's music, the cliche might go that the more modern the piece, the more discordant. In this concert, it's the opposite. The piece that's only 10 years old or so is like quite smooth and jazzy, and the Prokofiev is not, I guess. From the 1920s, he originally wrote it as circus music, commissioned to compose a ballet for a roving dance troupe, and he originally called it Trapeze. Is there something of the circus in this piece, Diane?
I would say yes, and in fact, that description helps explain the piece to me much better than any pictures I was formulating, because it just sounds like character sketches at the very most basic. Characters that are just changing their faces or their delivery or their jokes or just whatever. Every couple of bars, the music stops and then switches to something even stranger or unrelated. It's just kind of disjointed sounding sometimes and very dissonant. But when you think of it in the context of circus music, it's very, I could imagine clowns, and Rob was describing, what did you say, Joe?
Oh, the giant dancing bear? Oh yeah, in the fourth movement, it's this kind of drone. You'll hear it as soon as we start playing it. And I think it's a depiction of a weightlifter, trying to get the bar up above his head, and then gets it all the way to the top, and then from that point the music goes a little bit faster because the bar always comes down a little bit quicker. But also in the second movement, the bass has this big opening feature, and to me it always sounded like the dancing bear coming out, sort of looking very aggressive but kind of friendly at the same time.
One of those weightlifters with the spherical weights on the barbell, the brill creamed mustache, one of those old-timey circuses. I've seen one program though that says, okay, it starts with an oboe solo, and the oboe has many wrong notes. Are they wrong notes, or are they just Prokofiev?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I'm sure this piece, you've would be thinking of other pieces by Prokofiev. Are there any things that would remind you of that?
Well, I can tell you what it doesn't remind me of, in that this morning I was imagining coming here to play the Mozart Clarinet Quintet, and I thought, well, that's really only two players different than this. If we take the cello from the Mozart and move it down to the bass and change one of the violins to an oboe, all of a sudden you have this entirely different ensemble that Prokofiev took and made crunchy and just incredibly different than the Mozart Clarinet Quintet. So.
Because, if you take a clarinet quintet, those instruments, partly it's because the piece is played so much, but partly because they balance so well. And then you take this combination, and it just seems very weird to balance. Like, no offense, Rob, but it feels like the ensemble is missing a cello in between the bass and the viola. Yeah. And it sort of reminds me a bit of Stravinsky's Soldier's Tale in the oddness of the instrumentation as well. So that's what you can expect. It's Prokofiev at his, most aggressive, dissonant. Before we head off, I'll ask Diane and Rob about your impressions. Both of you have been in the CSO for more than 30 years, and this is Riccardo Muti's last week. At least last week of his official tenure, and then he's back in September as a guest. So it's like he'll have never disappeared at all. Having been in the orchestra for a long while, do you have any impressions of how he's changed the CSO in that time?
Oh, very much. There's so many different characters of the conductors, and in my tenure, I've gone from Schulte, who hired us all to be soloists, just out of the starting gate. Everybody just playing as passionately and noticeably, and just giving it everything we got. Lots of heart, and in the Hungarian way, lots of angular style. And Barenboim refined us a little bit more, and Muti even more so now. Almost to the point where he didn't want so many individual voices. He just wanted pure sound. And it's been a tough transition for some of us, but as so often happens with conductor tenures, and I've been through a few of them now, towards the end of it, I finally get it. and not only can I perform that way, but I'm at peace with it, and it just really resonates with me. So I think that Muti has really purified the sound of the orchestra. And would you say that, Rob? Or
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And the only thing I'd add is that one of the things, more important things that a music director will do is hire new players. And I don't know how many new people we've gained during his tenure, but a whole bunch of people. It's like, I want to say half the orchestra at this point, from when I first started 30 years ago. 30, oh my gosh. Yeah, I came in with Barenboim, and yeah, it's interesting the differences between how the orchestra responds to different people. There's also a nice period of time when we were between Barenboim and when Muti came on board, where Bernard Haitink was the interim music director, principal conductor, and he had such a calming effect on the ensemble, and he was, in his own way, just one of the most steady. I always think of it as like a ship, and the helmsman or the navigator and the captain are all sort of wrapped up in one with the music director. And I just remember those days with Haitink. The boat was very steady and made some amazing music during that time. So I'm hoping if we get an interim conductor that we can find someone on the level of Haitink, but that's going to be pretty hard to do.
Well, watch this space, I guess. Just going to let you know about a couple of upcoming concerts from Classical Music Chicago. Tomorrow's Dame Myra Hess Memorial Concert features soprano Olivia Boone and pianist Sharon McGinnis. That's at the 17th Church of Christ Scientist, a mile that way. Music by Josephine Lang, Benjamin Britten, Ottorino Respighi, and Giacomo Puccini. The Rush Hour concert right here next Tuesday is the Lynx Project. Poets on the autism spectrum have their words set to music by Chicago composers, so singers and instrumentalists for that. And also, a once-a-year event is tomorrow. It is June 21st, and Make Music Chicago. Classical Music Chicago organizes this festival, I think 23 different locations around the city. You can find out more by going to classicalmusicchicago.org. Please join me in thanking the performers who have joined this pre-concert talk, Rob Kassinger, Diane Mues, and Susan Warner. Thank you, and see you in 15 minutes. Hello, welcome to this rush hour concert at St. James Cathedral. I'm Robbie Ellis. This concert is presented by Classical Music Chicago and is supported in part by an award from the Illinois Arts Council Agency. Rush hour concerts are produced in association with St. James Cathedral. To perform music by Soupenetsky and Sergey Prokofiev, please welcome Scott Hostetler on oboe, Susan Warner on clarinet, Yuan-Qing Yu on violin, Diane Mues on viola, and double bassist Rob Kassinger.
Thank you.